The pedestrian light turns green and people start crossing the road. Among them is the protagonist, eyes glued to his phone, muttering that he can't be late today. After crossing, he calls someone, saying a dungeon appeared in the subway and blocked the exit. He says he's finally arrived and asks if the caller can see him. He spots a female silhouette walking toward him. It's his friend, Yuri. Seeing her, he feels something is off. She's wearing makeup for the first time. He wonders if she's always looked this mature. She calls him Mujin. He asks if she's been waiting long, but she ignores the question and says she has something to tell him. Mujin wonders why they're meeting in a wedding shopping district. Blushing, he starts thinking this might be a confession. Suddenly, Yuri grabs his hand and lifts it slightly, saying she wants something from him. She says she wants him to become her comrade. Later, back at his apartment, Mujin wonders if that really was the only reason she met him, not to confess, but to ask him to go to the academy with her. She also claimed she had regressed, and he has no idea what that even means. He thinks she was hella weird today. His father comes home from work and walking in says something smells wonderful and asks if it's galbichim. He asks if Mujin isn't going to be late today because of his date. Mujin says he thought the same, but things changed. His dad stares at him and asks if he got dumped. Mujin freezes, thinking his dad is as sharp as ever. He tells his dad that she asked him to be her comrade. His dad asks if that's the new gen way of saying friend-zoned. He advises his son to be more assertive, saying it's embarrassing for a man to just sit around waiting for a confession. Mujin fires back, saying his dad is wrong. He's 6'1", has a perfectly balanced, toned body and a handsome face. He says he deserves to be the one receiving confessions. His dad asks if he acts like this outside too, saying his son clearly doesn't know the meaning of humility. Mujin sits back down, saying he was lying. Yuri really did just ask him to be her comrade, and that's it. His dad asks what kind of comrade she meant. Mujin says he had a favor to repay her anyway. His dad says Mujin is making even less sense now, since he's not someone who goes around owing people things. Mujin says Yuri asked him to go to the academy with her. His dad asks why he's suddenly jumping from owing favors to joining the academy. He explains that he received something from Yuri. His dad asks what exactly Yuri gave him for him to do all of this. Mujin explains that she helped him reform his body, that it was only possible because of his martial arts, and Yuri was the foundation of those martial arts. His dad says Mujin sure knows how to silence him, then asks if this is why he made such a grand dinner today. Mujin shrugs, saying he wasn't doing too bad for himself. He was confident he could get into a prestigious university and land a good job. Until now, that's all he'd thought about. But he figures going to the academy might not be so bad either. He says he's confident he'll do well there too. Graduating, becoming a hunter, and exploring dungeons is a future he's come to look forward to. He admits he was taken aback when he first heard it from Yuri, but the more he thought about it, the more fun it sounded. Most of all, he's curious how far his abilities will take him. His father sighs, then chuckles, saying Mujin is really just like his mother. The academy is where hunters gather to train in organized teams or groups, making dungeon raids and monster hunts more effective. Their world is gradually stabilizing after the dungeon apocalypse, thanks to the academy. However, the dungeon border areas where bloodshed occurred in the early days are still classified as high crime zones and remain off-limits to the public. In one such area, Mujin asks if Yuri really found this place herself, saying it's the perfect hideout. He casually points out that there are 78 distorted flows, and some sections even change by the hour. Startled, Yuri asks if he can really feel all that. Due to weather anomalies caused by dimensional rifts from frequent dungeon clashes, the border areas are always shrouded in thick fog. Furthermore, barriers made of enhancement stone make it difficult for anyone who isn't awakened to even find the place. Even for Yuri, it would have been almost impossible without a stroke of luck. She wonders how he noticed all that at a single glance. She asks what Mujin is, since he doesn't belong to a martial family or a guild. Mujin says there's no need to be that surprised. Since she invited him to her hideout, he figured he should be a little more honest with her as her comrade. He opens his inventory, and Yuri looks surprised again, asking when he awakened. Mujin says he awakened when he was 13. The typical age is 17, and Mujin awakened back in elementary school. She asks why his inventory is empty then. He proudly says it's because he's level 1. She asks if that means he's never hunted even once. He shrugs, saying he planned to live a normal life like his dad wanted. Then she asks about his special trait. Mujin says it doesn't seem to be decided yet since he awakened too early. She asks if he knows his potential. Mujin replies that it says high. Yuri says that's a relief. She thinks that even without a special trait with high potential, if she learned the ultimate techniques for each weapon and armed herself with high-grade equipment, she wouldn't be inferior to monarch-class hunters. Someone was bound to notice that kind of natural talent. She thinks she'll have to keep Mujin as hidden as possible in the academy, her secret weapon. She tells him he should probably hide his stats too. Mujin says he knows and that he just didn't want to deceive her. Then she asks where he learned his martial arts. Mujin says he learned them from the internet. He asks if everyone doesn't just teach themselves, wearing a smug look. Yuri warns him not to say that in front of other families or students unless he wants to become public enemy number 1. He says he's not lying. He even named his martial arts after himself. Yuri says she has no shame. He laughs, saying it's not a big deal at all, taking it as a compliment. Suddenly, Yuri attacks him out of nowhere. Mujin asks what she's doing all of a sudden. Yuri says she just wants to see this grand technique she's so proud of. Mujin attacks back, and she blocks him. Mujin says she's not bad, but your movements are a bit redundant when you rotate. Yuri counters, telling him not to act so smug and get back into your stance. Mujin asks if she couldn't at least control her strength a little. Even though he blocked it, if anyone else got hit by her punch, they'd be looking at a 12-week recovery. She jumps high and kicks him overhead, but he blocks that too. He asks her to give him a second to talk while blocking another kick. She thinks her body isn't moving the way she wants it to. She wonders if it's because all her stats vanished when she regressed. Still, she shouldn't be having this much trouble against someone who's never hunted since awakening. Even though she's a veteran hunter with over 20 years of experience, giving it her all, she can't gain an inch on him. He's blocking everything with room to spare. She takes a deep breath and activates her Berserk mode skill, asking if he'll block this too. She charges forward with a punch primed, releasing it in a flash of red light. When the smoke clears, she looks around, saying that should be enough, but Mujin is nowhere to be seen. She looks up and finds him hanging from a support beam, waving at her. He jumps down right next to her and asks how he did. She looks at him, surprised, then sighs, saying he did all right and that they should go to her place for now. They arrive at the Fist King family mansion. Yuri sees Mujin lacking behind in shock and tells him to hurry up. A group of guards bow to her, calling her young lady. Still in awe, Mujin asks if this is even considered a house. She says it's the headquarters of the Fist King family, so not exactly a house. Mujin says just based on the property value in the neighborhood, this place must be worth hundreds of billions. An old man approaches Yuri and says the former patriarch has requested the young lady's presence in his private training room. She asks what her grandfather wants all of a sudden. The old man says it's not a place to answer. Mujin asks if there's some kind of problem, saying they came to meet the Fist King anyway. Yuri says it's not a problem and she didn't expect to meet him as soon as they arrived. She tells Mujin to follow her, saying she'll lead the way. The training room door glows blue, recognizing who's entering. After confirming it's Yuri, the door opens immediately. She looks back at Mujin and tells him to follow inside. Inside, she calls out to her grandfather, asking if he called for her. The old man stares at Mujin, making him flinch, then suddenly calls him a rascal and charges at him using his family's fist skill. Mujin dodges the old man's punch easily. After missing, the old man clicks his tongue, saying Mujin dodged without even trying to face it. Mujin replies that he had no choice, he was attacked out of nowhere. He asks if anyone would just stand there and take a punch like that. The old man says Yuri was capable of it. Mujin immediately pushes Yuri to the front and tells the old man to attack her instead. The old man says Mujin certainly has a more active mouth than his appearance suggests. Then he suddenly stares hard at Mujin and walks closer. Yuri wonders what her grandfather is doing, first throwing a punch out of nowhere, now acting all serious. The old man leans in and tells Mujin to take something off, surprising both of them. He says he'll demonstrate first. He flexes his guns and starts posing, saying a man should speak through his muscles, and tells Mujin to witness how loud his biceps are. Yuri closes her eyes in embarrassment, wondering what her grandfather is even doing. The old man looks at Mujin and asks how it was. Mujin says it's still a bit lacking, adding that the old man's triceps should at least be as big as his before they can be called loud, while striking a pose himself. Yuri starts pulling her hair in confusion, wondering why Mujin is playing along with her grandfather. Mujin then says he can tell the old man's muscles weren't built through martial arts alone. The old man says Mujin is promising for recognizing the subtle difference. Mujin says no one builds muscles like that with martial arts alone. This is the result of scientific nutrition and training. The old man asks what his big 3 total is. Mujin says he usually does around 10 tons on all, since it's hard to find equipment for anything beyond that. The old man asks if he does any training besides strength training. Pause, what is happening? Mujin says he performs training suited to his body, based on the basic fist king style that Yuri taught him. The old man calls this excellent and names him the pinnacle of the formless style. Mujin says there's no better training for building strength. The old man says he didn't expect someone outside the family to discover the hidden advantages of the family's basic stances. Yuri wants to wash her eyes with bleach after seeing what's happening in front of her. The old man then asks Mujin if he wants to become a disciple of the main house. Mujin says that was one of the main reasons he learned the Fist King style from Yuri, and since the informalist originated from the Fist King himself, it's an honor to learn directly from him. The old man says Mujin doesn't need to be so formal, and tells him to just call him brother instead. Yuri was about to step in if her grandfather objected, but somehow they're already calling each other brothers. The old man tells Mujin he's glad his granddaughter has such a reliable friend, and says he's looking forward to Mujin's future achievements. Mujin says he'll become the best so he doesn't disappoint the Fist King, and tells him to stay healthy. Outside, Yuri has a weird expression. Mujin asks what's wrong, and if it's because joining was easier than she expected. She says she's relieved he joined easily, but it all feels like everything went too fast. Mujin asks why speed is an issue, saying his brother is a trustworthy person. Yuri tells him to stop calling her grandfather brother. Yuri had regressed with knowledge of the future, but even a small change like this could lead to a completely different outcome. The butterfly effect is terrifying for someone like her. In her memories, her grandfather was a crucial figure in major future events. Now that Mujin's involved too, everything is bound to become even more complex. She thinks she needs to prepare even more thoroughly. Just then, a couple of people call out to Yuri, saying she's ignoring them now. A guy says she should at least say hello to her cousins no matter how busy she is. Yuri nods, says hello, and asks if they're happy now. The girl points at Mujin and asks who he is and if he's Yuri's boyfriend. Mujin introduces himself, saying he's Yuri's friend and that he joined the Fist King family today. The girl says what he's talking about and says it doesn't make sense. She asks if their family is some neighborhood corner store that just lets anyone walk in. The guy says Yuri even got permission from his father, saying his father would never accept someone like Mujin. Yuri says their grandfather accepted Mujin, so he's basically in. The guy says that's too much, even if their grandfather dotes on Yuri. Yuri asks why he's taking it out on her and tells him to go take the issue up with her grandfather himself if he doesn't like it. She says complaining to her won't change anything. The guy sees Mujin smirking while Yuri is talking and suddenly grabs his collar, asking him what he's laughing about. Yuri tells him to stop. His sister also tries to stop him, telling him not to bother with people like Mujin. The guy asks if she didn't see Mujin laughing at him. His sister says Mujin won't last long before getting kicked out anyway, and asks why he's getting so worked up. She says they shouldn't waste their time on someone like Mujin. The guy tells Mujin to just wait and watch, then walks past him, bumping shoulders. He says he'll be watching Mujin at the academy and in his house before walking away. Mujin asks if all Yuri's cousins are like this. Yuri says she doesn't think they're usually this bad. Later that day, the guy takes his father to the Fist King to complain. His father asks how the Fist King could let someone join the family without a single word to the patriarch. He explains that the 7 great families were formed when a hunter's value became directly linked to national power, and that the Fist King family is renowned for being the strictest of them all. He says they shouldn't be handing out main house membership to just anyone, and asks the Fist King to reconsider. The Fist King asks his son if he thinks the pillar of the family lacks an eye for talent. His son quickly answers that the Fist King does lack it, saying he once almost lost the house after getting caught in a pyramid scheme. The Fist King says that's totally different. The patriarch then asks the Fist King what it is about Mujin that made him like him enough to allow him into the family. The Fist King sighs and says he's seen countless people flock to our family just for the name, but Mujin is the first to understand the pinnacle of our techniques at his age, and he's even absorbed them in a way that suits his body. He asks his son to trust him on this. The next day at the academy, as soon as they step through the entrance gate, people start looking at Yuri, saying the princess of the Fist King family has appeared. They ask who's standing next to her, then brush it off, saying he must be a bodyguard or something. Mujin wasn't expecting Yuri to be even more famous than he thought. He also notices that no one particularly promising stands out, even though it's the academy. Still, he doesn't want to be careless. Suddenly, a girl screams behind him and comes tumbling toward him. He quickly moves out of the way, letting her pass. The girl lands on her hands, cartwheels, and lands on her feet before letting out a breath. She turns around and asks how Mujin could just dodge when a fragile girl like her was falling. Mujin says she should have gone to a regular school if she'd get hurt just by falling. He knows no one here is fragile. Even if she's just taking the entrance exam, that means she's at least 4 times stronger than a normal person. The girl says she was just curious about the guy walking around with the princess of the Fist King family, but he turned out to be someone very stiff. Mujin asks if he wanted him to get hurt just because she was messing around. She admits she was wrong and says she'll let his rudeness slide this once. She extends her hand and says she's Emily of the spirit summoning family. She says she's in charge of being the cute and beautiful treasure of her family, and she'll especially allow him to shake her hand today. Bro wasn't having any of it. He just starts walking away. She runs after him, asking if he's trying to pull the whole nonchalant guy act. Mujin tells her to stop watching dramas and to leave him alone. She grabs his arm and asks if he can at least tell him his name. He tells her his name while unwrapping her hands from him and asks her to excuse him. Suddenly, Mujin feels heat beside him. Some random guy calls him a bastard and tells him to get away from Emily. Mujin asks what the fire guy's even saying. He glances at Emily and asks if the fire guy likes her, then asks if that's why he styled his bangs to match hers. The guy tells Mujin to shut up. Mujin thinks this guy is way too easy to read. Emily tells Gil to stop, saying that doing all this is too much, no matter how charming she is. Gil attacks him, saying it's not enough that Mujin hangs around Yuri, now he has to mess with Emily too. Mujin asks when that happened. Seeing Gil isn't stopping, Mujin quickly uses Emily as a meat shield. Gil falters, but it's too late to stop. People gasp when they see him not stop. Gil diverts his attack at the last second to avoid hitting Emily. He calls Mujin despicable for pulling such a trick. Mujin asks how he's the despicable one when Gil was the one who charged at him out of nowhere. He says there weren't any rules to this fight anyway. He says he gets that Gil was trying to act tough in front of a girl he likes, but it startled Mujin when Gil just barged in out of nowhere. He adds that Gil's energy already seems to be getting weaker and asks if it isn't a waste to use it before the entrance exam. Emily wonders what kind of freak Mujin is after being set down. Mujin asks if Gil shouldn't at least weigh the pros and cons before picking a fight like this. He says since no one was hurt and he's feeling generous, he'll let Gil off with an apology this time. Gil asks what he means by my apology. He says he refuses. Mujin lifts his hand, a burst of fire shoots toward him but quickly fades. Gil says he'll deal with Mujin in the entrance exam and tells him not to dare lay a finger on Emily. Mujin sighs, saying Gil can't even apologize after wronging someone. Emily thinks about what's up with Mujin. He didn't even hesitate to use her as his shield, and her spirits are unusually trembling at his presence. She had regarded him as the princess's attendant, but he's something else. She looks around and realizes there are a lot of people around them now. Mujin says he's heading inside. Emily tells him to at least clean up the mess he made by drawing so much attention. Mujin says he has to meet a friend and that Emily of the spirit summoning family should know how to deal with it, deliberately saying her name loudly so the attention shifts to her. People start asking if it's really her and begin closing in. She pulls up her hood and says she needs to prepare for her entrance exam, telling them to make way. Later in the arena, the announcer tells the students the entrance test is starting and instructs them to step forward when their names are called. Yuri is worried about Mujin while getting ready.
There's no way he'd fail the entrance exam, but knowing his personality, he'd definitely get in trouble somehow. She used to think he was just a gentle, kind model student. At her hideout, Mujin had asked her to find something for him, saying that since she was the one who wanted him to go to the academy, she had to give him something in return, since their give and take relationship had to involve exchange. She asked if he didn't say it was an honor for him to be accepted by her grandfather, and if that wasn't enough. Mujin said she must have had a reason for coming to him specifically, even though she had regressed. Yuri nodded, saying he caught on quickly, and that she should also know he'd be no use to her unless he proved his strength to her. She suddenly attacked him and he dodged, grabbed her hand and slammed her into the ground, saying he was getting used to her sudden attacks. While pinning her, he asked if he'd proven enough now. She had no idea he'd been hiding that side of his personality. She walks off the stage after passing the gravity stone test without even trying. Mujin's number is 530. He says that's a pretty late number. Emily asks why she's stuck between these two again. They're in the same group. Gil tells Mujin to stop acting so relaxed and warns him to be careful so his bluff doesn't get called. He says the only one who's lifted the gravity stone past stage 5 so far is Yuri, and that he's about to change that now. His name is called. He steps up, grabs the stage 6 gravity stone and lifts it overhead. Breathing heavily, he says he would have been completely fine if it wasn't for Mujin earlier. Mujin is just clapping, not even seeing this as a competition. Emily is called next. She easily lifts the stage 7 stone without much effort. The others wonder how such a tiny girl can lift something so heavy. They say she's truly amazing, especially since strength isn't even the specialty of the spirit summoning family. After coming back, she asks Mujin if he saw that and tells him to not act smug in front of her again. Mujin says he agrees, calling her pretty good. She looks offended, asking what he means by pretty good, saying she just lifted stage 7, which is like dozens of cars. Each stage goes up by 5 tons, and stage 7 is around 35 tons. Emily says she'll grant one of his wishes if he manages to lift as much as her. Mujin says he accepts the challenge and tells her she can't take it back now. When he steps up to the lifting area, Mujin looks around the balls, counting up to stage 7, then asks where the stage 10 stone is. The instructor asks if Mujin is joking. He checks Mujin's profile, seeing that he's affiliated with the Fist King family but isn't a direct descendant. The instructor points out the stage 10 stone and warns Mujin that he'll fail if he messes up even one stage. Others ask if he's crazy or just an attention seeker. Mujin ignores them, walks to the stage 10 stone, grabs it, and prepares to lift.
He easily lifts the stage 10 stone. The instructor wonders what's even happening, but instead of dropping it like everyone else, Mujin suddenly crouches and starts squatting. The instructor tells him to stop, saying this much is more than enough. Mujin drops the stone and asks if that was really enough. The instructor rushes over to check the gravity stone, but there's nothing wrong with it. Mujin is the real deal. As Mujin walks back, the others quickly make way for him. Both Gil and Emily are speechless. He walks straight up to Emily and asks about the wish. He asks what he should wish for. She calls him a cheater and says she'll report him to the administration if he asks for something weird. Mujin says he'll take his time thinking about it. He already has a memo on his phone for what to ask from the spirit summoning family. He then asks if she wants to bet on the next test too. She says she's never betting again and hopes he fails the next exam. In the next test, he hits the machine so hard that it breaks. The next machine is also destroyed by him, leaving everyone speechless. He's destroyed 2 custom-made machines. Other students ask if this is even allowed. Emily thinks that based on Mujin's strength alone, he should be ranked as a count. The next test is the agility test. The students see Mujin getting ready and ask if it's really okay for him to run with the others and if they shouldn't be in protective gear. Everyone is looking forward to it. When the race starts, everyone goes silent. While running, Emily looks back in confusion and sees Mujin falling behind. She wonders if this is another one of his plans for a dramatic comeback, but his expression is way too serious for that. She thinks she should have bet on this test as she finishes in 30 seconds. Mujin finishes in 1 minute and 30 seconds. Emily asks why he was so slow. Mujin asks if he's not allowed to be. She thinks she'll know if he's hiding his strength or not in the next test. In the next test, iron balls fall from the sky, a perfect way to test agility. She looks back at him to see how he's doing this time.
Bro is just tanking me iron balls instead of dodging and still passes. The students ask if this is even real and call him barbaric. Mujin smirks, saying hiding his strength is harder than it looks. Emily says being as shameless as him is a talent in itself. Mujin turns to her and says he wishes for the Speed Star, an S-rank growth-type item. Emily shrugs, saying she couldn't give it to him if she had it, and asks if he knows how rare those are. Mujin pulls out his phone, saying he recorded them making that bet, and the Great Spirit Summoning family surely wouldn't back out. The first entrance exam concludes, and they're sent to rest. Yuri tells Mujin he should have kept a low profile, saying rumors have already spread that he's the stage 10 guy. She says there's no fun watching him grow if he's like this. Mujin asks who the girl behind Yuri is. Yuri says it's Hera of the Sword God family and introduces her as her friend. She explains that the Sword God family is one of the 7 great families, just like theirs. Mujin waves and introduces himself. The girl just nods slightly. Mujin then says the reason Yuri asked to meet him here was because of Hera. Hera stepped forward and pointed her sword at him. Yuri says that Hera told her she really wanted to have a talk with Mujin. Hera suddenly starts swinging her sword at him, forcing Mujin to cartwheel out of the way. Emily asks what's happening and why he took all those hits earlier if he knew how to dodge. He says it's because those iron balls couldn't kill him. He then looks at Hera and says her sword energy is sharp and strong, but her movements are too big. He asks if she's going easy on him because he's Yuri's friend. Hera, who's been listening, immediately gets into position before he can finish and attacks again, but no matter what she does, she can't land a hit on him. Yuri notices that Mujin is moving differently than usual. Emily asks how he's doing that, and Yuri asks if Emily used spirit arts in front of Mujin. Emily says she did that morning, but only for a moment. Yuri explains that Mujin's potential is limitless. Even if he can't use techniques skillfully yet, it's still enough for him to use them to dodge sword energy. After dodging for a while, Mujin finally takes the initiative and counters with a punch. Emily is shocked that he can do all this after seeing the technique for only seconds. When the smoke clears, Hera looks up and notices a crock in her sword. Mujin introduces himself to Hera again, saying it's nice to meet her. He says he heard Hera defeats Yuri every time they fight, and that her haughty expression has its own charm. Yuri glares at him, wondering if he's flirting right in front of her. Mujin extends his hand and says they should spar again sometime. Hera accepts, saying she wants to do that too. Later that day, at Mujin's apartment, Yuri is welcomed in by Mujin's dad. Mujin tells her he made the food himself and asks her to try it. After taking a bite, she thinks it's delicious and starts speedrunning all the dishes, saying everything is amazing. Mujin's dad says it's good to see her eating so well. Yuri hides her mouth, apologizing and saying she must look terrible. Mujin's dad tells her not to worry and that it's nice to see her eating heartily. He tells her not to feel pressured and just enjoy the food. Yuri says she didn't know Mujin was this good at cooking. His dad says Yuri can come over whenever she wants. Mujin telepathically says that Yuri sure can eat. Yuri asks if he can use telepathy too. He said, I thought it might be hard for her to speak with her mouth full. Yuri wipes her face and tells Mujin's dad not to worry about the academy, saying she'll take responsibility and protect Mujin until he graduates. Mujin tells her telepathically that you're wiping the wrong side. He also tells his dad that Yuri is planning to give him a Panax ginseng herb. His dad says just hearing that makes him happy. Yuri laughs like a classic rich person and says she'll take care of it, then asks if Mujin will quiet down now. Mujin says they're heading inside since they're done eating. His dad tells them to go ahead and offers to do the dishes. A sudden realization hits Yuri. She wonders what he meant by going inside and if that means into a guy's room. Mujin is pristine condition and tells her to make herself at home. She's completely embarrassed but tries to pull herself together. She asks him to tell her about the spirit art he used earlier, asking if he copied it from the spirit summoning family girl. Mujin asks if it was that obvious, saying he thought she wouldn't notice since it was done so clumsily. Yuri asks how he managed to do that. He said he just felt a different kind of energy from Emily, so he tried his best to mimic it by sight. He said it was easy and bets Yuri could do it too. Yuri says normal people can't do stuff like that. She thinks that if Yuri hadn't regressed, all of Mujin's talents would have gone to waste. When she was dying in her last life, if she hadn't seen that moment with Mujin, he probably would have gone unnoticed in this life too. Mujin says he wants to learn something more while we're on the topic of learning. The spirit magic in his hand turns into fire magic, and he says he wants to learn fire magic. He asks if Big Brother Fist King was also a fire mage. Meanwhile, while meditating, the Fist King senses someone approaching and asks who's there. It's Yuri's cousin, Yuji.
He asks what brought Yuji to his training grounds. Yuji says it wasn't anything special, he just came to train. The Fist King tells Yuji he should show his face more often in the training area. Yuji says he understands, then says there was something else he wanted to ask. Just then, Mujin enters, calling the Fist King brother. The Fist King immediately goes to greet him, saying he heard about Mujin passing the Stage 10 tests. Mujin says it was all thanks to his solid basics. The Fist King says Mujin still shouldn't neglect his training and asks if he wants to pump some iron together. Then he remembers Yuji is still there and asks if Yuji wanted to say something. Yuji says it's nothing and that he'll come back later. Mujin notices the old man's 10-ton dumbbell with a gravity stone attached and says his brother is truly amazing. The Fist King says it doesn't feel like a real workout without gravity stones or a gravity field. Mujin agrees, saying it's perfect for training legs too. Then the Fist King says he heard that although Mujin cleared all the Stage 10 tests with ease, he barely passed all the other tests. Mujin says he must have pushed himself too hard from the start. He says clearing Stage 10 on the Gravity Stone test probably used up all his fuel. The Fist King says Mujin can't fool his eyes and asks if Mujin wasn't hiding his strength and what he was plotting. Mujin just smiles and says it wouldn't have been hard for him to get a perfect score on the entrance exam, but unless it was by his own methods, being rank 1 or rank last was all the same to him. He says he was simply holding back a little because he was still searching for his own path. The Fist King bursts out laughing, calling Mujin a clever rascal. Mujin thanks him for the compliment and asks if he could request a favor. The Fist King says he'll listen as long as Mujin doesn't ask for his gravity stone dumbbells. Mujin says he wants to learn fire sorcery. The Fist King asks if he's sure he doesn't mean martial arts instead. Mujin understands if the Fist King wants to refuse, but he sincerely wishes to learn fire magic from him. The Fist King steps forward and activates his fire magic, saying his fire magic is a bit different from the rest. He begins demonstrating it to Mujin. Seeing a strange expression on Mujin's face, the Fist King asks if he's disappointed. Mujin says that's not the case. He was just thinking that he finally found what he wanted, a method that suits him. He says he knew he was right to ask his brother for guidance. The Fist King laughs again, saying Mujin looks more audacious the more you get to know him. Later, at the Patriarch's office, Mujin tells the Patriarch that he has become the sole disciple of the Fist King to inherit his fire sorcery. The Patriarch sighs and says he thought Mujin was a brute, but he turned out to be a sly fox instead. Mujin thanks him for the compliment. The Patriarch says he heard from Yuri that Mujin asked for the Panic's ginseng herb, even though he placed only 20th in the entrance exam. Mujin asks if the Patriarch didn't even notice what he was doing. The Patriarch asks what he means, but Mujin plays it off, saying it's nothing. The Patriarch clicks his tongue and says he'll get Mujin his spellbook soon, and tells him to leave. Mujin asks the Patriarch to give his word and make it official that he has become the Fist King's disciple, since his reputation within the clan isn't the greatest, and his relationship with his cousins isn't great either. The Patriarch tells Mujin to stop talking nonsense. While walking through the hall after leaving the Patriarch's office, someone calls Mujin a freeloader and says there are rumors about him clearing Stage 10 during the exam, telling Mujin to show his amazing strength. Before Mujin can even respond, Yuji immediately activates a barrier around them, one that isn't used for simple spars. Mujin thinks that Yuji is too simple-minded and never deviates from his calculations. Mujin says he's going to call his master now. Yuji scoffs, asking who would even train someone like Mujin. Mujin says, "Didn't you know that my master is the Fist King, and that it's official?" Yuji cuts him off, telling him not to make him laugh. He grabs Mujin by the collar and asks if Mujin knows what's so great about this training ground. He says it's a total network dead zone, so you won't get any signal anyway. Mujin says, "I see it now." Yuji asks how long you think Yuri will keep helping you. Mujin bursts out laughing, saying the way Yuji talks is way too funny, like a kid reenacting a cartoon villain. Yuji asks if Mujin is crazy to laugh in this situation, his teeth grinding.
Before Yuji can speak again, Mujin grabs him by the face, lifts him off the ground, and slams him into the floor. He thinks that should be enough to shut him up. As soon as he removes his hand, Yuji starts yapping again, asking what Mujin is even babbling about and threatening to kill him. Mujin gets annoyed, grabs Yuji by the neck, and says Yuji seems to have the guts to want to kill me, but does he have the guts to die himself too? He says he's been wondering about something for a very long time. He says he's always wanted to know if people could fit inside the inventory.
Yuji's expression goes dark, and Mujin says he almost forgot that he only has one slot in his inventory. He asks if he should just cut Yuji into pieces first, but then there'd be way too much blood and cleaning up would be a pain. Plus, it would be a problem if Yuji died before he even got into the inventory. Then Mujin notices something and starts striking Yuji's neck with his fingers, forming some kind of knots on the blood vessels, causing him to release some strange energy immediately after. Mujin says Yuji is holding on quite well and seems to value his life after all. Yuji pisses himself while begging Mujin to spare him. He says he'll never show his face in front of Mujin again, that he was wrong, that it was all his fault, crying the whole time. Mujin records a video as Yuji promises he'll do anything Mujin asks. Later, Yuri watches the video and says Mujin is cold-blooded, asking if it wasn't a bit too extreme. Mujin says Yuji was trying to act tough, so he just wanted to see if he was really strong. Yuri fan palms, saying Yuji was an idiot and that it's probably for the best since they won't have to worry about him bothering them anymore. She says they should focus on the ranking matches now. While walking to the exam center, Yuji sees Hera and Emily and asks if they got their admission notices. Emily asks if that isn't obvious. Mujin says he won't go easy on Emily if they meet in the ranking matches. Emily snaps back that she should be the one saying that. He asks if she's even in a position to say she'll go easy on him. She tells him to shut up and not to cry when he loses to her. Bystanders think Mujin is way too lucky to be surrounded by all those girls. One guy says Mujin is the guy who lifted the stage 10 gravity stone. Another says he must be stupid then. The first guy tells him to try being a halfwit like Mujin and see how that goes. One random guy glares at Mujin from behind. Mujin tells Yuri he can feel bloodlust from behind. She says it's Bae-jun from the Tiger Guild. Mujin asks what his deal is and if Yuri has a bone to pick with him or something. Yuri says Mujin is the one who's good at making enemies and that Bae-jun must be a childhood friend of Emily, just like Gil. She tells him to look at them as a set. Mujin asks if that's the case and says he can probably tease them even more then. Yuri tells him you seriously have a nasty personality. Mujin calls out to Emily, saying she has a caterpillar on her shoulder, making her jump and scream. Then he says he was just pranking her, and she starts hitting him, asking if he wants to die. To the stalkers, it looks like Emily and Mujin are being all lovey-dovey. The freshmen are welcomed to the academy, and they announce that the first match of 128 is about to start for the first-year rankings. Mujin says it's nothing special since it's just the round of 128. Yuri tells him not to let his guard down and be careful what he wishes for. Bae-jun on the phone tells someone to get something ready, saying Mujin is having fun now because this will be the last time he ever smiles. He says Mujin won't be able to handle his fight at all, and he won't even need to dirty his hands. Mujin gets called to the stage for match 3. He says he'll be right back and tells Yuri not to eat all his popcorn. Yuri tells him to be careful. As Mujin walks down, Yuri wonders why his opponent has to be Lee Min, the direct heir of the Blood Heaven Guild. A well-balanced fighter, ranks top 10 in the entrance exam. On top of that, he has bloodline arts. One mistake and it would be over in an instant. Lee Min says it's nice to meet the famous stage 10 man and that we should have a good fight with no regrets. Mujin says he's looking forward to it too, extending his hand. The match starts and they both jump back. Mujin immediately jumps in, crashing into the floor where Lee Min was standing, but Lee Min isn't there. He appears behind Mujin, saying Mujin has incredible power and that this is to be expected from the Fist King's sole disciple. Mujin quickly turns and attacks, but Lee Min dodges every time, leaving a scratch on Mujin's face. Lee Min says Mujin has impressive fist energy and that if it weren't for him, anyone else would have died in a single hit. He says he loves the chilling feeling that he might be beaten to death, that it's been a while since he's felt this way. The blood dripping from his face starts floating. It's the bloodline art, Blood Spear, the skill with highest lethality among fist arts that utilize blood. Every time the opponent bleeds, it hastens their own death. Mujin gets cut all over his body, and his blood starts floating too. Lee Min licks his lips, saying he's been looking forward to this, calling Mujin Mr. Stage 10. Lee Min thinks he's about to destroy Moojin now since this is a favor for a friend. Seeing Lee Min rushing in, Moojin prepares to punch, but Lee Min jumps over him and uses his bloodline art, forcing Moojin to jump back. Moojin says this Lee guy is starting to annoy him. He tries to punch back again but ends up getting more injured. Lee Min says Moojin's blind punches are useless and that his bleeding won't stop anytime soon. Moojin says he wanted to save this for later, but he has no choice now. When Lee Min lands on his feet, he sees a blue glow coming from Moojin. Moojin uses his fire to cauterize his cuts. After closing all his runes, he asks Lee Min what he's going to do now. Lee Min says he's never heard of Moojin being able to use fire magic. He charges at Moojin, saying it doesn't matter either way. He'll turn Moojin into a bloody mess and see how many times he can cauterize himself, but before he can finish, he gets punched in the face. He bounces off the floor and goes flying, crashing into the outer wall. Moojin says he honestly doesn't understand why everyone talks so much trash all the time. The crowd goes crazy. One guy says he wasn't expecting the fight to end that way. A girl asks what happened to the bloodline arts. A red-haired guy asks if Lee Min wasn't faster. They say Moojin just tanked all the hits and ended the fight with a single blow, calling him insanely durable. Emily says he wasn't just taking those hits for no reason. Yuri says Emily has a good eye. She explains that Lee Min was baited. Moojin probably realized the moment he saw the bloodline art that his fire magic hard countered it, so he waited for the moment Lee Min let his guard down. She says Moojin isn't just brainlessly strong, he actually uses his head. In terms of raw combat ability, she says Moojin is probably in the top 5 of their year. Emily looks angry hearing that. Moojin returns, saying he heard they're serving eel rice bowls for lunch. Emily starts pouting, calling him a despicable jerk and asking how long he plans to keep pretending to be weak. Moojin says he never really did. The ranking matches continue, and following Moojin, Hera, Yuri, and Emily all pass their matches. Most of the students are talking about the 3 girls. Moojin brings back a plate piled high with food, saying the academy really is in a league of its own. He says he can't believe they're serving eel rice bowls for lunch. Emily asks why he's so excited, saying this level of food is served at her house all the time. Moojin looks surprised and asks if she eats them regularly. Emily says yes, she has a private chef. Moojin says their lives really are worlds apart and that he usually cooks for himself, so he avoids eel since cleaning them is such a pain. Emily asks if Moojin really knows how to cook. Moojin says his culinary level might be even higher than her martial arts, adding that even Princess Yuri was gobbling his food like she hadn't eaten in days. Yuri tells them to shut up and finish lunch quickly so they can watch the rest of the matches. The announcer tells Emily and another student to get ready for their match in an hour. Moojin asks if she wants to make a bet. Emily says she doesn't need to, she's going to win anyway. Yuri tells Moojin to watch the match closely. Although Emily's opponent, Sangwon, isn't from a prominent family, he's still a mage. She says there's a lot to learn from a spiritist versus a mage. Both contestants get ready. As soon as the match starts, Emily rushes forward, firing off spirit magic. Sangwon dodges a barrage of Emily's attacks. People start booing him, telling him to stop dodging and fight. Yuri says Sangwon's style is similar to Moojin's. Moojin says it looks like Sangwon is just running away, but he's actually sizing Emily up, though his reasons look a little different. He says it's like a herbivore fleeing from a predator. Yuri says it might be intentional. He's probably waiting for a single opening since those attacks have the highest lethality. From the edge of the ring, Sangwon suddenly says he's about to lose by ring out. He condenses mana in his hand, extends it upward, creates a massive mana ball, and fires it at Emily, shocking everyone. Emily coughs from the impact, but she blocks the attack. However, her cute reaction makes Sangwon fall in love and Sangwon surrenders. At the hideout, Yuri asks if Moojin knows the significance of the academy rankings. Moojin asks if it affects their GPA or something. She tells him to stop joking and listen seriously. She explains that there were about 100,000 applicants to the academy, and naturally, only 1 in every 1,000 made it in. Even then, only the top 50 could enter the S class. Joining that exclusive group meant entering the elite course for hunters who represented the country. Moreover, winners of the ranking matches gained access to the Academy's treasury along with immense fame. She says this was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of glory. The semifinals start, and it's Moojin against Yuri. People say they're finally facing each other, the princess and the servant. One guy says he can't believe 2 of the 4 finalists are from the Fist King family. Even then, a servant shouldn't stand a chance against a direct descendant. A girl says he's crazy, that Moojin definitely has a chance, and asks if he has any idea how terrifying both of them are. The guy says Yuri is bound to win with her talent and flair, and there's no way Moojin would beat up a girl. The girl snaps back, asking if he knows how many people Moojin trashed to reach the semifinals, including Hera and Emily. Everyone wonders who will win.
Just as the announcer is about to start the match, Mujin raises his hand and says he forfeits. Emily says this is truly annoying. She asks why he forfeited after stepping over everyone else. Mujin asks why she's getting annoyed when he's the one who lost. She then asks why Mujin brought a random guy with him. Songwen nervously says hello to Emily. Emily calls Mujin reckless, and Songwen thinks she's talking to him, asking if he showed up at the wrong time. She says she wasn't talking to him, and that she just got a little worked up. Then she suddenly switches personalities, politely introducing herself and the others to Songwen. Songwen gets completely flustered. Mujin says he thought Songwen had a lot to learn from Emily, and the same went for him. He said he learned a lot from their match, since Emily is a pretty high-ranked spiritist, despite her looks. Emily snaps back, asking what's wrong with her looks. Mujin pats Songwen on the back, saying it was impressive for him to hold out that long against her. Although Songwen doesn't show it, he doesn't like Mujin. Mujin is tall, handsome, and even made it to the semifinals. Songwen thinks that one day he'll outgrow Mujin and become a worthy man for Emily. Emily asks if Yuri isn't joining them. Mujin says that as soon as Yuri won her match, her grandfather called her, saying it was a glorious win for the family. Emily says it was cold-hearted of Yuri to vanish like that after Mujin even forfeited for her. Mujin laughs, saying the results would have been the same even if he hadn't forfeited. But actually, Yuri bribed him, promising to buy him expensive sushi if he forfeited, and he took the deal without second thought. Emily says she'll take his word for it, and that she'll treat him like a little brother out of pity for losing. Songwen gets flustered, thinking she's talking to him. A few nights ago, Yuri called Mujin and told him that on the evening of the finals, there would be a dungeon break. She says she wouldn't remember it if it were a normal dungeon break, but this one was different. She explains that a resonance occurred between stabilized dungeons after they were cleared, causing the territory to expand. On the night of the finals, Mujin checks his phone and sees that it's almost the time Yuri mentioned. After recharging his sugar levels, he remembers that Yuri told him to use an item she gave him to hide his identity and act discreetly. He uses it and becomes a super fat version of himself. He checks himself and says it's a total failure. He wasn't expecting to get fat. But then he notices something and thinks now's not the time to complain. He starts looking around for the dungeon. Yuri had told him he wouldn't find it immediately and that they couldn't even identify the cause after the incident occurred. She explained that only after repeated research later did they find the cause of the erosion. They had let their guard down thinking it was a dormant volcano, but it was actually an active one. She vividly remembers that nearly 3,000 people were killed or injured, all of them normal civilians. Mujin arrives at an area where the distribution of mana feels different, meaning he's close. Suddenly, a group of monsters ambushes him. He quickly punches down the smaller ones. Only the big one is left. The ogre attacks, but Mujin punches through it before it can land its hit, his fist going straight through its body and leaving a hole in its chest. He lands on the other side, looks back, and says it was easy EXP.
Before going on this hunt, Yuri had told Mujin that he would run into people he would absolutely need to kill. Mujin asked who could make her that angry enough to want them dead. She said they were people who ate her comrades. Mujin asked what she meant and if she meant they literally caught and ate them like cannibals. Back in the present, a man holds up a small golden item saying it wasn't even enough to cover the fare to get here. He wonders if the raid teams had already swept the area clean. He says it would be nice if even a C-rank item showed up and that he couldn't keep making a living scavenging like this anymore. Then he notices a dagger on the ground. It looks like it's C-rank too. He quickly picks it up saying it's worth at least 2 months of living expenses. Just then, he hears voices. A group of people are watching him from a hole in the ceiling, glaring at him. He asks who they are. One of them replies, who else could they be? They're the ones who put that dagger there. The scavenger says he found it himself. They reply that they left it there so he could find it. He says he understands and slowly drops the dagger, saying he'll leave it and go. They tell him to forget about it, saying everything here belongs to them, including him, while licking their lips. The scavenger turns and runs. The leader tells the others to catch him without hurting him. One of them asks if lead poisoning is okay as long as they cook him right. Another laughs and asks if they should eat him as tartar. Suddenly, there's a loud bang above them. The ceiling cracks and a fat man crashes down, instantly crushing one of the thugs' heads. Mujin lands, turns around, and asks which one of them he should kill next. The leader shouts at the others for standing frozen, saying there's no way a fat pig like this guy could attack like that. It must be some kind of charm or illusion magic. He orders them to get him. Mujin braces himself and spins his massive belly, smashing the thugs and sending them flying.
After dealing with them, he quickly checks their pulses. They're dead. He thought he'd feel weird killing people, but since they were scum, he doesn't feel much of anything. Yuri had told Mujin that these people would undergo a second awakening by eating human flesh. And even when people like this started running wild, the government, clans, and guilds didn't lift a finger. Mujin asked if they were just turning a blind eye. Yuri had said that might be the case. Blinded by their success, the cannibals crossed a line they should never have crossed. Mujin thinks he should have learned some interrogation techniques to wipe these cannibals out by the roots. The dungeon raid is completed successfully, and the boss turns out to be the leader of the cannibal humans. Mujin thinks he didn't know a human could become a dungeon boss instead of a monster. Then he looks around, feeling like he forgot something. The scavenger is still waiting in a corner, shaking and breathing heavily. Mujin wonders if he should get rid of the witness, too. It wouldn't be hard, but it would make him feel guilty. The scavenger speaks up, thanking Mujin for saving him. Mujin says it was nothing, but the scavenger insists he wants to repay Mujin's kindness. Mujin tells him there's no need and that he should just help someone else in need instead. The scavenger says he has an ability that could help Mujin. He says those cannibals were probably trying to hunt him because of this power. He asks if Mujin could show him his hand for a moment. Mujin thinks it might be a trap, but since his energy is so faint, he's not much of a threat, so he agrees. The scavenger activates a skill called reinforcement, which uses mana to reinforce internal energy. Mujin wonders if it's something like metallization or giganticism. The scavenger pulls his hand back, saying it's finished, although nothing looks different. But when Mujin channels his mana, power floods his fist. He punches a nearby wall, destroying it completely, and stares in surprise. Mujin says the scavenger increased his attack power and the durability of his fists. The scavenger addresses Mujin as my lord and says he's correct. He hands Mujin a business card and asks him to accept it. Mujin takes it, wondering why someone older enough to be his father is calling him lord. The scavenger says he looks forward to working with Mujin, saying a hunter like him needs a tank like Mujin. He bows deeply and says he'll be waiting for Lord Mujin's call. Mujin wonders if a person's height could also be reinforced with the scavenger's skill. Later that night, the bodies of the cannibals were being inspected by armed police. An old man welcomes the team leader. The team leader greets the commissioner and says they've never seen a case like this before. He explains that the deceased were known as the Eaters. The reason they kept slipping through their fingers was because they disguised themselves and stuck to low-rank dungeons. They cleared them quickly and had started getting comfortable there. They also weren't killed by magic beasts or monsters. The commissioner asks what that means. Who could have done this? On the news, it's announced that the dungeon break has been stabilized and there were no casualties. Mujin's dad says it's a relief since usually there would be a lot of victims. Mujin says it probably depends on the dungeon. His dad replies that until now there's always been enormous damage. Mujin points out that it's only been a few decades since dungeons appeared, so there's probably still a lot they don't know about them. His dad turns off the TV, saying Mujin talks like it's someone else's problem. He's about to bring up what happened to Mujin's mom, but stops. Instead, he tells Mujin to just be careful out there. Even with Yuri helping him, there's still a limit. Mujin says that Yuri and he are comrades, like partners in destiny. His father says it's natural for a father to worry. Mujin asks why his father is acting so concerned, saying he's his father's son. His father says that's true, and what about it? Meanwhile, Mujin's blood-stained clothes are in the laundry. The next day at the academy, an instructor introduces himself, saying he'll be in charge of the S class. He tells them they're the top 50 students of the new batch and that they should take pride in that and work hard. Mujin and Yuri use telepathy to talk during class. Mujin says, I'd hope to see some new faces since it's a new semester, but it's all the same people. Yuri replies it's only natural. Most of them are from the 7 great families or major guilds. They won't lose their top 50 spots to just anyone, not with their family pride on the line. Then she adds, Mujin seems perfectly fine after killing 5 people. Mujin replies she was the one gritting her teeth, saying they had to die no matter what. They're interrupted by Emily, who asks if they're talking to each other during class again. She says silence is a requirement. Mujin teases her, saying she should learn telepathy if she wants to join in that badly. She's clearly annoyed. Sangwon greets Tum, and Mujin says he didn't know Sangwon made it into their class too. Sangwon replies that his exam scores were high enough even though the tournament didn't go well. Inside, Sangwon thinks he's going to absorb all of Mujin's alpha male energy by staying close to him and steal Emily away. Talking about the tournament reminds Hera of something. In the tournament, she lost to Yuri for the first time in her life. She quickly asks Yuri for a rematch. Yuri tells her to keep that thought to herself, at least until we're out of class. The instructor comes back in a PE outfit and asks why everyone is still in class when the bell already rang. He tells them that time is power and money, and orders them to head to the training grounds. He says they need to develop the fundamental qualities of a hunter and to cultivate those qualities through non-stop reps of squats, lunges, deadlifts, and pull-ups. He warns them that any student whose total score falls behind will be demoted to A rank. Yuri tells Mujin that he should know by now that the workout itself isn't the problem. Mujin says he gets it. If they don't stay sharp, they'll be crushed under the instructor's pressure. The students complain, asking why their attributes have to be sealed. Emily asks how they're supposed to do squats without their powers. Meanwhile, Mujin is doing squats with added weights. Everyone stares at him in confusion. During pull-ups, he's doing one-arm reps. After a while, he gets bored, saying it doesn't feel like a workout at all. He asks if the instructor can turn up the gravity field since lifting weights is too boring for his body. The other students ask how Mujin isn't even breaking a sweat. The instructor explains that Mujin's attributes are sealed too. This is just his pure physical strength. He realizes that Mujin is the rumored stage 10 guy. There was no information on him before the entrance exam. He literally dropped out of the sky. That doesn't mean his background is shady or that there's some secret to his birth. The instructor increases the gravity pressure tenfold for everyone, not just Mujin. The students are instantly driven to their knees. Emily says her joints are about to snap and calls Mujin a bitch for putting them through this. Mujin casually does a few reps under 10G, then asks if the instructor can increase it to 20G or maybe even 40G.
Back in her first life, Yuri had to push herself to the limit to finally climb from A class to S class. The S-class instructor had told her that even though she passed the promotion exam, she shouldn't forget that she barely made the cut. He said that for a member of the Fist King family, her offense was severely lacking and that her passing was only thanks to the influence of the Academy's tower. If she wanted to see real combat, she had to apply herself far more. Yuri nodded and said she understood. But now, that same instructor was laughing, saying that in his 20 years as an instructor, this was the first time a kid had actually asked for 40 times gravity. Mujin says he wasn't bluffing, he just wanted a proper workout. The instructor replies that Mujin has guts, but if he raises the gravity any further, the other cadets won't be able to handle it. He adds that Mujin was the only one who successfully performed deadlifts at 10 times gravity. He tells Mujin to check his inventory after class. Yuri thinks to herself that she was right about him. Once again, Mujin was her secret weapon. Even their extremely picky instructor had acknowledged him. She knew he would stand out too much, and that eventually the Academy would recognize him. His very existence would change many things, and many things had already begun to change. On the day she died, she had seen him as an unpolished gem. This time, she swore she would make sure he was properly unearthed. When PE class ends, all the students are on the floor, practically dying. Mujin asks what they're doing and tells them they should head to class. Emily says it must be nice to be acknowledged by the instructor like that and tells Mujin to check his inventory to see what he got. Mujin checks and sees an item called Essence of Strength, a C-rank elixir. He clicks his tongue asking why it had to be only C-rank. Yuri tells him the rank doesn't matter for an elixir. The only thing that matters is who drinks it. The stat increase is proportional to the consumer's potential. She adds that some people would kill to get something like that and tells him to watch his mouth before making even more enemies. Back at the Fist King's personal training grounds, Mujin and the Fist King are sparring. Mujin kicks the Fist King back and rushes him. The Fist King raises a firewall to stop him. Mujin realizes physical strikes won't work and pushes forward again. The Fist King slaps his hand away. Mujin says he's got him now and activates fire magic himself. The Fist King ducks under Mujin's fist and counters with his fire magic, blasting Mujin away. Mujin says his master is amazing, getting stronger even at his age. The Fist King replies that Mujin is the truly impressive one. He says he didn't expect Mujin to learn fire sorcery this well in just a month. He asks what his level is now. Mujin says he's at level 13. The Fist King says that's quite modest and that he wouldn't have been surprised if his level had exploded.
Mujin replies that his internal energy increased instead, and that it shouldn't matter, he still got stronger. The Fist King laughs and calls him a bold brat, saying he really is his top disciple. He asks how academic life is going. Mujin says he thinks he'll have the place under his thumb soon. The Fist King says his disciple needs that kind of guts and confidence. Mujin says he's going to raise hell in the academy without holding back. The Fist King tells him to go right ahead, his master will take care of everything for him. Some random people are watching them from outside. The Fist King tells Mujin that his spellbook will be ready next time and to study it well. Mujin says he understands and asks for permission to leave. As Mujin is leaving, two guys who are watching him step into his path. They ask where he's going in such a hurry. Mujin asks why they care where he goes. They call him a little shit for using informal speech with people he just met. Mujin tells them to get to the point and asks if they're looking for a fight. They scoff, asking if he really thinks he can look down on them just because the former patriarch dotes on him a little. Mujin tells them what their point is, telling them to speak up and stop looking like they're about to cry. One of the guys swings at him. Mujin feels blood surge. He blocks the strike instantly, dislocating his elbow, then counters with an uppercut that launches him into the air, sending him flying. Mujin walks away. One of the guys says Mujin is strong and that he might end up competing with the black-haired guy standing behind them. The black-haired guy says he wasn't sure a punch without any magic could have that much power. He adds that Mujin won't be easy to handle. He's the vice leader of the White Martial Hall of the Fist King family. The other guy, the leader of the Black Martial Hall, says the black-haired guy is as humble as ever. The black-haired guy says Mujin clearly lacks speed and internal energy, but for a complete novice to reach this level, he could be considered a genius, but that's all he is. He says the cousins were throwing a fit about Mujin, so he was curious what he'd be like, but Mujin is just a brat, not even a hurdle to him, someone still at academic level. Later that day, at a cafe, the scavenger Mujin saved waits patiently. He thought Mujin had abandoned him, but luckily he got called today by his savior. He thinks that in this harsh world, it's really important to pick the right side if you don't want to end up in danger. Just then, the door swings open and Mujin sits down across from him. Dohu quickly says that the seat is taken, he's meeting someone, and asks both Mujin and Yuri to move and find a different seat. Mujin says he's the one who called him. Dohu is completely lost. Mujin asks if he looks a bit different from before, calling Dohu by name. Dohu asks if Mujin was using polymorph before. Mujin says he was. He then introduces Yuri to Dohu. Dohu asks if Mujin is the sole disciple of the Fist King. After seeing Yuri with him, Mujin says Dohu already knew about him and adds that Yuri is a classmate at the academy as well. Dohu asks if he means the Hunter Academy. Mujin says he's right, which means Mujin is currently a high school student, completely shattering Dohu's expectations. Turns out his reliable backer is a high schooler. Mujin asks if Dohu is disappointed because he's so young and says Dohu is free to leave if that's the case. Dohu quickly says that's not the case at all. He says he will skillfully serve Mujin, calling him Lord. Mujin says the Lord title is a bit much and tells Dohu to just speak casually. Dohu says he understands. Yuri telepathically says that Dohu seems genuinely shocked and asks if it's really okay for Mujin to reveal himself like this. Mujin replies telepathically that it was never a secret to begin with. She asks if he's actually being serious again. Before coming here, Yuri had told him they needed to gather reliable allies for what was about to happen in the future, adults outside the academy who were actively working in the field. She says the reinforcement mage Mujin mentioned might be a perfect fit. She asks if he knows what the butterfly effect is, explaining that they'd need many small flaps of a butterfly's wings because the future she experienced was truly miserable. Mujin asks if she's saying Dohu is going to be their butterfly. Yuri says she's saying there's no need to push the guy away and that they should at least meet him once. Mujin asks if Dohu is surprised. He says he really is a first-year academy student and asks if he wants to see his ID card. He says he's the one who closed the recent dungeon break and that Dohu could get quite a reward if he reported him. Dohu thinks for a second and says he'll pretend he didn't hear anything. No matter if Mujin is a high school student, the fact that Mujin saved him remains unchanged. He says he'll keep Mujin's identity a secret. Mujin congratulates Dohu, saying he just saved his own life. Suddenly, a killing intent bursts out and shatters the glass in front of him. Dohu wonders how it's possible to destroy something with pure killing intent alone. Yuri scoffs and telepathically says that Mujin is doing, saying this is way too tacky for a threat. Mujin says Dohu is an older guy. She sighs and replies that even old people don't talk like this these days. Mujin and Yuri prepare to leave after the introduction and the threat. Dohu tells them to get home safely. As Yuri walks past, Dohu thinks that she's the Flame Blossom Yuri. Despite such a grand title, she looks like a normal young girl in every way, but still, she feels like she's even older than him. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a blonde woman runs through empty streets. She thinks she would have died if it weren't for Space Leap and that she acted too hastily. Suddenly, she senses something and quickly dodges as something flies past her face. She slides to a stop, and a man says he expected her to dodge that easily. The attackers call her Jane from the Shadow Guild and say it would have been easier for both sides if she had just played dead. She asks if they're from the Grey Guild, the Punishing Trio. She realizes they're the Grey Guild's strike force, known for being merciless. She asks why they're dragging other guilds into their mess, referring to Jinwoo, the vice leader of the Shadow Guild. She calls him a pathetic loser and tells him to do it himself if he wants to kill her. Jinwoo says he'd love to do it himself, but it's too difficult. He says he should know he hates fighting dirty and using his own hands is out of the question. He's about to start monologuing when he notices Jane casting some kind of magic. He recognizes it as a skill called Thunder Spirit. Jane jumps straight at Jinwoo and his lackeys. Jinwoo asks if she's crazy. Jane says she's going to take him out with her. When the smoke clears, all the attackers are still alive. Jinwoo grits his teeth, saying she just tickled them. Another guy hiding behind him says there's no way she would use Thunder Spirit here. Jinwoo asks if the guy can track her, calling him Reaper. He says he'll leave at least one ear of Jane's as a trophy. Jane keeps running and ends up on a cliff with nowhere left to go. She wonders if she messed up her coordinates during the space leap. Reaper appears behind her and asks if she's done running. He says you let your guard down, thinking they'd send a strike force instead of a tracker. He adds there was no way the vice guild leader would go easy when the prey was the guild leader herself. He tells her not to worry too much, since killing her instantly isn't his style. She asks if you were the one they call Reaper. Reaper says they should enjoy themselves until the rest arrive, and asks if it wouldn't hurt her pride as guild leader to die quietly. Jane starts using Thunder Spirit again. He asks if they should see how much she can struggle, and whether this time it's the real one. He says she should at least be able to do this much as a guild leader. Then he sees something coming from above. It's Mujin. He falls like a meteor, smashing straight into Reaper. Jane is stunned, wondering what kind of magic that was. The others arrive asking what the sound was and whether Reaper finished the job by himself. But when they see what happened, they're frozen in shock, all that yapping just to be smashed in half. Jinwoo wonders what exactly happened and who Mujin even is. Mujin asks if these guys were with Reaper too. They're all taken aback. Mujin stomps on Reaper one last time, then runs at the others. Jinwoo orders the goons to stop him. A massive bald guy tries to block Mujin but gets punched in the face and sent flying. Another guy attacks from the side. Mujin diverts the punch and headbutts the guy's elbow, snapping it. Jane realizes Mujin isn't using magic at all. These are purely his combat techniques. She wonders if that's even possible. Nothing but training, no spells. A chain flies at Mujin from behind. He dodges it, but the chain loops back and catches him this time. Jane is shocked. The guy starts pulling the chain tight. Mujin looks at it and starts laughing. The guy wonders why he's laughing. Mujin says, "I can't believe the future turns into a living hell because people struggle against trash like this." He says he really doesn't understand the world at all. Yuri, standing right next to Jane, says he's saying that just to tease her and tells him to stop nagging, making Jane jump like a startled cat. Yuri tells Mujin to finish them already. Mujin says that's exactly what he's doing. The chains around his hands start melting as he releases his fire. The chain wielder starts sweating, realizing he's done for. Jane thought Mujin couldn't use magic, but he can, and it's strong. Mujin uses the techniques he learned from the Fist King, blitzes past the guy and crushes his head. Jane can only wonder what kind of monster he really is.
She thinks he's at least Marquis rank, maybe even Duke rank. Mujin checks his status and sees he's level 17 now. He says that 4 levels was quite the haul. Jane's eyes go wide, wondering if he just said something ridiculous. She thinks his level should be in the triple digits. She asks who he even is. He says his name is Mujin. She replies that she isn't the local community center to recognize him just from that.
Yuri tells Jane to take it as it is for now, and that she'll find out every detail in due time. She says that right now the priority is extracting information from this Jinwoo guy. Jane asks who Yuri is. Yuri says she's from the Fist King family and tells Jane to rest easy. Jinwoo asks how Jane hid a card like this from him. Jane tells the traitor to shut up, saying she'll rip his mouth open. Mujin says she can rip his mouth open in a bit. Jane asks if Mujin is also from the Fist King family and how he managed to deal with Reaper. Mujin says Jane doesn't need to be so formal since he's only 16 years old. Jane is shocked. Mujin then excuses himself and starts dragging Jinwoo away. After a few seconds of screaming, Jinwoo says he'll tell them everything. After a few more minutes, Jinwoo is begging to be killed. Mujin happily obliges. Mujin says he heard about most of what he needed to know. He says there's some kind of plan to take over the black market. Jane asks what that means and who's behind it. Mujin says this isn't the best place for details and that they should talk somewhere safe. He also says he has someone to introduce her to. Before leaving, he turns around and says he almost forgot to mention that she can go rip the guy's mouth open if she wants. He left him untouched for her. Jane says she doesn't want to. Back at the black market hideout, they tell Dohoo about the black market situation and ask if he knows what it is. Dohoo says he obviously knows, since it's usually where he rips people off, where he trades as well. Mujin asks if Dohoo rips people off a lot. Dohoo says he just said he trades. Yuri says he definitely rips people off. Then Dohoo asks what this is about taking over the black market and says it's operated by a very formidable woman. Yuri says she knows the operator isn't an ordinary woman, but it's a market with massive interests at stake. She says Dohoo should know you can't get anything without going through the black market. From loot to rare items, it's where hunters from all over the world gather to trade everything imaginable. Dohoo says he knows 5 guilds run it, and there are even rumors that 2 of them merged. Yuri says it's not a rumor, it's a fact. She also mentions that the Shadow Guild is on the verge of being taken over. Dohoo says that can't be true. He asks if the Shadow Guild is some kind of neighborhood grocery store, saying a guild leader like Jane wouldn't just sit back and take it. Yuri says that's exactly why they tried to kill her. Jane says they even went as far as involving the Grey Guild. Dohoo turns and sees Jane. She asks if Dohoo is Dohoo and says she's heard about him from the others. She asks if he isn't a skilled reinforcement mage. Dohoo says he isn't part of anything and says it was all the Grey Guild. Yuri and Mujin think this guy definitely ripped off Jane's guild too. Jane says she saw who did it with her own eyes. She says she came here for a secret talk, and it seems Dohoo is trusted by Yuri and Mujin. Jane looks around, thinking the place is basically a fortress. She realizes she never would have found this place if she hadn't been told in advance. Mujin says I heard Jane was looking for something and asks her to take a look. He says it's an item that will bind us together. The S-rank weapon, the Sword of Subordination. Jane walks up slowly, her eyes locked on the sword. It's a blade that subordinates souls to enhance abilities and ultimately allows for spirit possession. Dohoo grabs the sword and says it's the real deal, asking where they found it. Mujin says it was in the academy storage. Mujin says I heard Jane was looking for it on the black market, but then adds that he can't just give it to her for nothing, making her shiver. Mujin says she will cooperate, no matter what it is. Dohoo starts blushing after hearing her say she'd do anything and starts thinking something inappropriate. Yuri asks what Dohoo is thinking, her fist covered in flame. Mujin asks what Dohoo did. Yuri says kids don't need to know about it. Mujin tells her not to get worked up. Jane is super sexy and Dohoo is an old guy. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a man asks what it means that their men were countered. He asks if Jane was hiding her strength this whole time. The informant says the Grey Guild and the General Guild are already annihilated, and the details are still under investigation. The man says there's nothing to be done and orders the informant to send trackers after Jane.